Hey y'all, welcome back to the Free Black Women's Library YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you for liking this video, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. My name is Ola, and on this channel, I do what I like to call rambly reactions to films, TV shows, and sometimes even books that are written, created, produced, and directed by Black women and Black non-binary folks. And today I am talking about a movie that came out in 2022 called Honk For Jesus, Save Your Soul. Now, it is satire, and it first premiered at Sundance of 2022, January 2022. So it was in theaters for a little while, and it is now streaming on Amazon Prime, which is where I watched it, and was very pleased to discover that it is the directorial debut, feature debut of two sisters. Adama Abo, hope I'm saying her name correctly, is the director and writer of the script, and she co-produced it with her sister, Adan Abo. Congratulations, sisters. You did that. All right. So this film is actually a longer feature version of a short film of the same name that is streaming on YouTube. So you can watch the short film, and then you can watch the feature to kind of see how they expanded the story when they got more money. I'm guessing, hey, go girls. So yes. And part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this film is because it is falls under one of my favorite genres of all time. And that is the mockumentary. Now, mockumentary was a term. I'm stumbling over my words. Rambly. Mockumentary was a term that was originated in the 1960s, but was further popularized in the mid 1980s when Rob Reiner used it in his interviews to describe his film, which is called This Is Spinal Tap. Now, that's probably one of the most popular mockumentaries out there. And another one that I really love is called Best in Show. Really, really good. There's another film, which is Borat, another popular one, as well as TV shows like The Office and Parks and Rec, and my current favorite TV show, Abbott Elementary. Now, what do all these films have in common? These films and TV shows have in common. I'm going to read to you the description of what a mockumentary is, and I'm sure that will help us figure it out. Now, a mockumentary is a type of film or show depicting fictional events presented as a documentary. These productions are often used to analyze or comment on current events and issues by using a fictional setting or to parody the documentary form itself. Now, I thought it would be fun to talk about this film and use it as a template or just kind of explore the different elements of a mockumentary, but use this film as an example. My last video and the video before that one, I did this thing where I was talking about 5 elements of something. So I'm going to continue with that because it seems to be working. And I'm going to say, 5 elements of a mockumentary, the 5 traits, 5 characters, 5 aspects that make for a good mockumentary in my eyes. Who am I, right? Just a wannabe film theorist, a wannabe cultural critic, but I love this genre. I love this genre. I think it can be really smart, really subversive, really witty, and it's a really interesting way to tell a story and often provides the foundation for really, really good character studies. When you think about characters like Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec, when you think about characters like Ava, the principal from Abbott Elementary, when you think of characters like Dwight from The Office, right? So mockumentaries can be really fun and really enjoyable. And let's get into Honk For Jesus, Save Your Soul. Now, this is a story where in the aftermath of a huge scandal, we have Trinity Childs, played excellently by Regina Hall, is the first lady of a prominent Southern Baptist mega church. Her and her husband, Lee Curtis Childs, played wonderfully by Sterling K. Brown. He's the pastor. Her and her pastor husband are attempting to rebuild their congregation after a bit of a scandal. It seems that Pastor Childs has been inappropriate with young men. He's been giving them gifts. He's been having these intimate moments with them. We don't really get to hear the details, but we know that whatever he did, excuse me, has caused him to have to settle out of court, has caused his church to lose faith in him, has caused him to pay a lot of legal fees and a lot of lawyer fees and a lot of money has been divvied out. And there are some scenes within the film where you see that the rumors are true and the scandal is true, based on an interaction that Pastor Lee Curtis has with someone from the Mockumentary crew, the sound man from the Mockumentary crew, where he kind of like touches his face, and it's like, why are you touching his face like that, Pastor? But either way, that's the story. They are now trying to recover from this scandal, open their church back up, and they have this huge plan to open the church back up Easter weekend, right? Bring their congregation back, get Miss First Lady back on that stage, fill the house, get the choir going, the sounds, the lights, the action. This is a mega church, and Pastor Lee is very flamboyant and very loud and very extra and very dramatic and very full of himself and very, maybe a little bit delusional. I don't want to therapize him, but there's something there where he's got some like blinders on, where he doesn't really seem to be sitting in reality. So not only are they trying to recover from this scandal, but they have some competition because there is a younger church couple played by Austin Crute and Nicole Bahari, who are also opening their big mega church Easter weekend. Now, these two don't have any scandals. They're just a wholesome, Christian loving, black loving couple. But they are fierce competition for what we consider the top tier folks of town. And these two decide to ask the younger couple if they could open their church on a different day, because it would be confusing for the people of the town to have to choose between Pastor Lee and the other pastors, right? The Sumters, Pastor Sumter and Pastor Sumter. It would be too much. And the Sumters are like, no, we're not going to change. We've been planning to open on Easter weekend for a long time. We're going to have to do it on Easter weekend. So Lee Curtis and Trinity decide that instead of opening on Easter weekend, they will open the weekend before, even though they're totally unplanned, unprepared. They don't have it together. They decide we'll beat them to the punch and we'll open before they do. And for some reason, the Sumters decide that instead of competing with Lee and Trinity, they'll open the weekend before Easter and let them have Easter weekend. So they both end up opening, both mega churches end up opening on Easter weekend, and the Child's church is packed, and there is no one that really shows up to, well, no, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The Sumters, the younger couple, their church is packed, and these two, they only have these 5 dedicated congregants who have been coming, regardless of the scandal. They've been coming and coming this whole time. So the plan doesn't work. The scandal is too much. The competition is too much. and the child's folks kind of end up falling flat on their face in the end. And this documentary is supposed to be capturing the comeback. It's the comeback, baby. Huzzah. Like, that's how Pastor Lee Curtis kind of approaches everything. He's like very much a showman. He's a magician. He's like, he's the type that would pull a nickel from behind your ear, it seems like, right? So there's a couple of things that take place that really gave me the inspiration for this video, because I wanted to just look at it from a mockumentary's perspective. And when I did that, it really made me appreciate it more. I already enjoyed it because I just love these two actors. And I think this was a very brave subject matter to tackle in this way. So I give props to the writer and the director, as well as the cast. But I wanted to approach it in a creative way and not just do a Rambly reaction, but talk about the 5 elements that make for a good mockumentary. Now, those of you who've been watching my videos know that part of why I call them Rambly reactions is because I kind of have this tendency to ramble and go off on tangents and possibly be a little bit overly detailed and overly focused on specific things. So please ride with me if you can. I say all that to say, let's go. All right. So element number 1, I call it messy camera. This is exactly how I have it written in my notes. The relationship that the characters have with the camera in a mockumentary is very different than the relationship that the camera would have in a narrative or a basic documentary or a biopic or a lecture. Because in a mockumentary, you have these moments where it almost seems like the camera is hidden behind things, or the camera is trying to sneak up on people, or we're supposed to act like the camera's not there. So it's like kind of like this fly on the wall effect. And us as the viewer sometimes might feel like we're watching things that we aren't supposed to be seeing. So one example I can clearly remember is in The Office. For those of you who watch The Office, when Jim first told Pam that he loved her, and then Pam went to the office and was talking to her mom in the dark when all the lights were off, and she was talking to her mom about how she feels about Jim and how much she cares about him. And the camera is not just peeking through the camera's peeking through a closed door. So not only are the lights off, but the camera's peeking through a closed door, and we're kind of like, it's kind of as if we're eavesdropping on this moment. Now, in Honk For Jesus, we have this moment where Regina Bell's character, Trinity, is at the mall and she's shopping for some hats. And then at one point, she sees a group of young men in the food court, and she tries to send the cameras away, and she sits there and just kind of watches those young men. So we've already gotten this hint that Pastor Childs has this tendency to be inappropriate with young men. And so by the look on her face and the way Regina plays this part so well, and then we get to see the camera kind of flash on these boys/men, is we kind of get to know, okay, there's a reason why we're seeing this, and we're not supposed to be seeing it necessarily, because she definitely doesn't want us to. She does not want to talk about the court case and Lee Childs' activities at all. Like, that's all behind them, supposedly. So I feel like that was a really significant moment. And then there's a moment towards the end where the camera kind of chases her down when she's trying to get away from them. So there, once again, there's this invasive element to the camera. There are moments when maybe a camera might go out of focus and come back in focus, where the camera's really far away and then it runs up on somebody. And then there's those moments where you just have the talking head, what they call the talking head, where the camera is directly on someone and they're not talking to the camera necessarily, but they're talking to this kind of invisible person that's standing on the left or the right of the camera behind them. So their eyes are going forward, but they're not looking at you. So that's something that's done very well in Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. We have multiple scenes where Regina's in the church and she's talking to the camera and she's saying whatever. She's talking to the person behind the camera and saying whatever. So that's element one. Element two, mockumentaries, in my opinion, some of the best, are either based on or inspired by real life events. Now, you may or may not heard of a mega church, Black mega church pastor named Eddie Long. Now, Lee Curtis's character definitely reminds us of Eddie Long for multiple reasons. Not just because he's a fancy, well-dressed, sharp, kind of full of himself, larger than life preacher type, but also because Eddie Long had years of scandal in terms of his interaction with young men ages kind of 17 to early 20s, moments where he paid them off, bribed them, gave them gifts, had moments of cringy, awkward intimacy with them that made them uncomfortable or made them feel used or made them feel violated in some way. And in addition to Lee and Eddie having that in common, what they also have in common is that they paid off the victims that they preyed on, and all of them took some type of settlement except for one. Similar to the film, there's one specific character who does not take the settlement money that pastors offers, but there are multiple of them who do. Huge settlements where he pays them off just to get out the news, just to be done with it, just to get it over with. How much money do they want? Let's give it to them, right? Except for one whose name I believe was Jamal. And in Eddie Long's case, I think his name was Malik, or maybe I got that backwards. But either way, based on inspired by real life events. So Honk for Jesus does that. And I think one of the reasons why, when I looked online to just check in to see how this movie did critically, the reviews are so mixed, because this is a very polarizing subject. We're talking about sexual abuse in the church. I'm saying sexual, I'll say an abuse of power, and I'll say an inappropriate situation, because we don't really know the details of what happened between the pastor and these men. We just know that whatever it was, it should not have happened. It was an abuse of a power dynamic, right? So this might be part of the reason why it receives some negative reviews, is because there are people who are they take their religion very seriously, and they take the idea of sexual abuse very seriously. I also take those two things very seriously, but I think this film, by making these things the plot points of its satire, it offers the chance for for conversation. It offers the opportunity for conversation about these things, right? The conversations about church hurt, which is a really important topic that needs to be discussed more. Conversations about abuses of power, conversations about why this woman would stay in this horrible, loveless marriage. This marriage has no romantic elements. It has no sensual elements. It barely has any sacred elements, even though they're both supposed to be Christian. So it's almost as if it's a business partnership, because even in the end, we have Anita, who's the maker of this mockumentary that they hired to make this mockumentary to film their comeback. She asked Trinity, why don't you just leave? And that was my question throughout watching the whole thing, is like, why are you with this man? But that's the type of person I am. I would have been out as soon as the scandals jumped off and were even proven to be a tiny bit true. I would have been like, divorce. But for some reason, she stays in this marriage. She feels like it's her wifely duty. She feels like it's her Christian duty. She talks to her mom about wanting to leave it, and her mom is like, how dare you? Like, you're not the daughter that I raised. This is what it means to be married to a man. It means to struggle, it means to suffer. And she asks her mom, when did you stop feeling this way about daddy? And she says the day he died. Like, yo, that is not what marriage is for to me. Like, that's horrible and sad. It's horrible and sad, right? Which brings me to element number 3. Element number 3 for me, part of what makes a good mockumentary for me, what I see is a common element between them, is there's often an uncomfortable truth or a sadness that is discovered, uncovered, explored in the story. For instance, Abbott Elementary, my favorite show, as hilarious as it is, it brings to light the issues within education, public education, the lack of funding for art, for supplies, the fact that Melissa is teaching both second and third grade at the same time, the fact that they had to bribe someone to get money they needed. They have to sell candy for a school trip. Like, these are all sad truths about the state of public education. So regardless of how funny the show is, it's still letting us know, like, these are, like, we still know, those of us who know, if you know, you know, these are real issues. These are not made up. These are not fictional plot points. These are real life stories from real life public school teachers. So the uncomfortable truth and sadness for me in this story is not just the scandal, because it does seem like Pastor Lee is suffering and struggling for the harm that he caused. And I'm a vengeful person, so I feel like people who do harm should suffer and struggle a little bit. But the sad element to me is this gorgeous, beautiful, vibrant, talented woman character being trapped with this man, feeling like she has no outlet, feeling like she can't even get her boots knocked properly in this relationship. What all she's getting is this title of first lady. So she's desperate for that, and that's sad to me. And part of what I think is so incredible is the way that Regina Bell delivers her lines as Trinity Childs. And there are certain things that she says that you can tell she's hurting inside. You can see the hurt in her eyes and the sadness in her eyes. You can see the pain and the fear that she's dealing with in this marriage when she's talking about it. So kudos to Regina, one of my favorite actresses of all time, being able to deliver comedic lines in a way that kind of grabs you, like, damn, that's sad. Element number 4 of what I have seen and observed in the mockumentary is that breaking of the fourth wall. Often done in my favorite TV shows, my favorite TV shows like Abbott Elementary and Parks and Rec, where you have the character look directly at you. So not just the whole talking head thing where they're sharing something and it seems like that it's in response to a question from a person behind the camera, but we have these double takes where someone might say something or someone might do something, and then the camera might quickly flash on another person or another character, and they're looking directly at you, the viewer. Like, do you believe what he just said? Did you see what I just saw? It's that type of vibe. It's the breaking of the fourth. That's what they call the breaking of the fourth wall. Some of you all might already know that, but this wall between me and you is the fourth wall. I have these other walls virtually, right? And the thing is, when I break the fourth wall, that means that I'm pulling you into my story. There's no separation or division between us. So that breaking of the fourth wall does happen multiple times in Honk For Jesus in a way that's really, really touching and done very, very well. And it also it's also about this dialogue that feels this dialogue and these moments that feel unscripted. They almost feel like improv, and often are improv. Oftentimes when you hear a character say something in a mockumentary style show, depending on the talent that's booked, they might have such a deep understanding of that character that they will say something that just goes right along with something that character would say, or they would do something that character would do. For instance, there's a scene in Honk For Jesus when Regina and Sterling are in the pool, and they're talking about their plan to open the church early. And Regina is like, I don't think we should do this. I don't think we're ready. I think we should wait. And Sterling is like, no, the Lord built the day and how many ever days. I think I can do it. And he's being all Mr. Showman, being all extra, being all loud, being gregarious. And he goes to like bite Regina's foot. I honestly feel like that moment was not scripted. I feel like he improv that. So not only does he bite her foot, he kind of swims away towards the edge of the pool, and as he comes out the water, his trunks slide down, so you see a tiny little bit of booty. He flails his arms out and he pulls his trunks up and he walks away. And I was like, Sterling is eating this role up. So there are a bunch of little things that both of these characters do that feel like improv. They feel unscripted. They feel very natural. They feel appropriate for these characters. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that element of where it just feels like natural, and where the characters are doing things that are really much in line with how we perceive them, like Michael being a liar and like breaking things, and Dwight being a weirdo who like stalks people. What was the name of the little blonde woman on The Office? And the fact that she had a camera that was like recorded her cats that she would like watch all day. She was cat obsessed, so she had like her cat cam. Little things like that. Definitely give that mockumentary vibe. So that fourth element, I have two things listed, but I'm smashing them together. And that is dialogue, and the improv dialogue and vibe, and the breaking of the fourth wall. So the fifth element that I'm going to touch on quickly, try to be quick, is that mockumentaries are hilarious. Mockumentaries are often hilarious and awkward and subversive and witty and weird, and often have these moments where they're just so absurd that all you can do is just laugh. Like all you can do is laugh because they're so absurd. You can't believe it, because people in themselves are funny. Like these characters can be they're so odd and so developed that you're like, they might remind you of people you know in real life, or they might say something that just makes you like laugh out loud, laugh belly out loud. And this movie is definitely hilarious. It has moments where I cracked up, and then it has moments where I cringed but was still amused. That's giving mock, right? That's giving a mockumentary vibe. So hilarious, awkward, dialogue, breaking of the fourth wall, uncomfortable truth or sadness, based or inspired by a true story, and the camera. So yeah, so those are the 5 elements I came up with, y'all. Tell me what you think. Have you seen Honk For Jesus? What did you think of this movie? And also tell me, what's your favorite mockumentary? I highly recommend Best in Show. I think that's one of my absolute favorites. And my favorite TV show, as I already said, is Abbott. But yeah, if you watched the video, the entire video, thank you. And follow me on Instagram at the Free Black Woman's Library. And please subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to see if I can get to 1,000 subscribers. Help me make it happen. All right, y'all. Thanks. Have a wonderful day.